Hi everybody, we are live at AWS reInvent in Las Vegas. I'm Jeff Kelly with wikibon.org. You're watching theCUBE, SiliconANGLE's premier live broadcast. We go out to the technology events and as John Furrier likes to say, extract the signal from the noise. So being here at the AWS show, we're going to talk to a lot of AWS customers, hear a lot about what they're doing, in this case around analytics, data warehousing, and data integration. So for this segment, I'm joined by two customers, Daniel Heacock, Senior Business Systems Analyst with Etix, and Adam Haynes, who's a data architect with Federated Sample. Welcome guys, thanks for joining us on theCUBE.
Thanks.
Your first time, so we'll promise we'll make this as painless as possible. So you guys have a couple things in common. We were talking beforehand. Some of the workflows are similar. You're using Amazon Web Services Redshift platform for data warehousing. You're using Attunity for some of the data integration to bring that in from your operational transactional databases, and using a BI tool on top to kind of tease out some of the insights from that data. But why don't we get started, Daniel? We'll start with you. Can you just tell us a little bit about Etix, kind of what you guys do, and then we'll just kind of get into the use cases and talk a little bit about how you guys came to use AWS and Attunity and some of the other technologies you're using.
Sure, yeah. So the company I work for is Etix. We are a primary market ticketing company in the entertainment industry. We provide box office solutions to venues and venue owners, all types of events, casinos, fairs, festivals, pretty much you name it, we sell some tickets in that industry. We provide a software solution that enables those venue owners to engage their customers and sell tickets.
Mm-hmm. So kind of, would you a competitor to something like Ticketmaster, the behemoth in the industry? And you're
Definitely, so Ticketmaster would be the behemoth in the industry, and we consider ourselves a smaller, sexier version that is more friendly to the customers.
Customer friendly, more agile,
right.
Absolutely. So Adam, tell us a little bit about Federated Sample.
Sure, Federated Sample is a technology company in the market research industry, and what we aim to do is add an exchange layer between buyers and sellers. So we facilitate the transaction between when a buyer or a company like Coke would say, hey, we need to do a survey. We will negotiate pricing and route our respondents to their survey.
Try to make that a more seamless process so they don't have to go out and find survey respondents who are
everything's
qualified.
manual. Right.
Absolutely, got it. So let's talk a little bit about, let's start with AWS. So obviously we're here at reInvent, big show, 9,000 people here. So you guys, we talk about Agile, we talk about cloud enabling kind of innovation. Adam, let's start with you. What kind of brought you to AWS? Are you using Redshift? And I think you mentioned you're all in the cloud.
Right.
Just give us your impressions of the show and AWS and what that's meant for your business.
Right, show's been great so far. As to, we were originally on-premise entirely, a data center out in California, and it just didn't meet our rapid growth. We're a smaller company, startup, so it couldn't handle the growth, so we needed something more elastic, more agile. So we ended up moving our entire infrastructure into Amazon Web Services. So then we found that we had a need to actually perform analytics on that data, and that's when we started the transition to Redshift. Mm-hmm.
And so the idea being you're moving data from your transactional system, which is also on AWS, into Redshift. So you're using Attunity for that, their CloudBeam solution. Talk a little bit about that and how that is differentiated from some of the other integration methods you could have chosen.
Right, so we started with a more conventional integration method, a homegrown solution to move our data from our production SQL Server into Redshift. And it worked, but it was not optimal, didn't have all the bells and whistles, and it was prone to bad management, being like not many people could configure it and know how to use it. So then we saw CloudBeam from Attunity, and they offered a native solution using SQL Server replication that could tie into our native SQL Server and then push that data directly into CloudBeam at a very fast rate.
So moving that data from the SQL Server, is it essentially a real-time replication so that that's moving that data into Redshift so that your analysts can actually, when they're doing their either reporting or doing some real ad hoc kind of queries, they can be confident they've got the most up-to-date data from your SQL Server transactional system? Right,
yeah, nearly real-time, and just to put in perspective, the reports that we were running on our other system were taking 10, 15 minutes to run, and in Redshift we're running those same reports in minutes, 2 minutes.
Right, and if you're running those reports so quickly, the people sometimes forget when you're talking about real-time or interactive queries and reporting, it's somewhat only as good as the data timeliness that you've got, the timeliness of the data you've got in that database, because if you're trying to make some real-time decisions and you've got a lag of, depending on the workload and your use case, even 15 minutes to an hour that
Right.
could really impact your ability
Right.
to make those decisions. So Adam, talk a little bit about your use case. Is it a similar all cloud architecture, or are you moving from, I'm sorry, Daniel, moving from on-premise to
So
Redshift?
we are actually working with an on-premise data center. It's an Oracle database. So we've basically we ran into two limitations. One regarding to our current reporting infrastructure, and then two, kind of our business intelligence capabilities. So as an analyst, I've been kind of tasked with creating internal feedback loops within our organization as far as delivering certain types of KPIs and metrics to, inform our different teams, our operations teams, our marketing teams. So that has been one of the kind of BI elements that we've been able to achieve because of the replication into Redshift. And then the other is actually making our reporting more, comprehensive. We're able to run, now that we're using Redshift, we're able to run reports that we were previously not able to do to run on our on-premise transactional database. So really we just are kind of embracing the power of Redshift, and it's enabling us in a lot of different types of ways.
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing a lot about Redshift at the show. It's Amazon says it's the fastest growing service AWS has had from a revenue perspective in its 6-7 year history. So clearly there's a lot of power in that platform, and it removes a lot of the concerns around having to manage that infrastructure, obviously. But the performance, that's something I think when people have their own data centers, their own databases, tuning those for the type of performance you're looking for can be a challenge. Was that one of the drivers to kind of your move to Redshift?
Oh, for sure. The performance, I'm trying to think of a good example of a metric to compare, but it basically enabled us to develop a product, or to develop products that would not have been possible otherwise. There were certain, the ability to crunch data, like you said, in a specific time frame is very important for reporting purposes. And if you're not able to meet a certain time frame, then a certain type of report is just not going to be useful. So it's opening the door for new types of products within our organization.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit, the different data types we're talking about. So you've got, at eTix, you're talking about customer transactions, are you talking about profiles of different types of customers? Tell us about some of the data sources that you're moving from your transactional system, which I think is an Oracle database, to Redshift, and then what are some of those types of analytic workloads? What kind of insights are you looking for?
Sure. So we're in the business of selling tickets, and so one of our main concerns, or I guess I should say, we're in the business of helping our customers sell tickets, and so we're always trying to figure out ways to improve their marketing efforts, and so marketing segmentation is one of the huge ones. Appending data from large data services in order to get customer demographic information is something that is easy to do in Redshift. And so we're able to use that information, transaction information, customer information to, better engage our fans. So.
And likewise, Adam, could you maybe walk us through kind of a use case? Maybe types of data you're looking at that you're moving into Redshift with Attunity, and then what kind of analytics are you doing on top of that? What kind of insights are you gathering?
Right. So our data is a little bit different than ticketing, but what we ultimately capture is a respondent's answers to questions. So we try to find the value in a particular set of answers. So we can determine the quality of the supply that's sent from suppliers. So if they say that a person meets a certain demographic, that we can actually verify that that person meets that demographic, and then we can actually help them improve their supply that they push down to their respondent to. Everybody makes more money because the completion rates go up. So overall, just business analysis on that type of information so that we can help our customers and help ourselves.
So I wonder if we could talk a little bit about kind of the BI layer on top as well. I think you're both using Jaspersoft, but beyond that, one of the topics we've been covering on theCUBE and other, Wikibon is this whole analytics for all movement. And we've been hearing about self-service business intelligence for 20 plus years from some of the more incumbent vendors like Business Objects and Cognos and others. But really, I mean, if you look at a typical enterprise, business intelligence usage or adoption rate kind of stalls out by 18%, 20%. Talk about how you've seen this kind of industry evolve a little bit, maybe talk about JasperSoft specifically, but what are some of the things that you think have to happen or some of the types of tools that are needed to really make business intelligence more consumable for analysts and more just business users, people who are not necessarily trained in statistics, aren't data scientists? Adam, why don't we start with you?
So one of the things that we're doing is with our JasperSoft is we're trying to figure out we have APIs and we have traditional, client server applications. Which ones our customers want to use the most? Because we're trying to push everybody towards an API oriented. So we're trying to put that data into Redshift with JasperSoft and kind of flip that data and look at it year to date or over a period of time to see where all of our money's coming from, where all is our revenue getting driven from. And our business users are now empowered with JasperSoft to do that themselves. They don't rely on us to pull data from them. They can just tie right into JasperSoft, grab the data they need for whatever period of time they want, and look at it in a nice, pretty chart.
Is that a similar experience you're having at ETEX?
Definitely, and I think one of the things I should emphasize about our use of JasperSoft, and basically really any BI tool you choose to use in the Amazon platform, is just the ability to launch it almost immediately and be able to play with data within 5-10 minutes of trying to launch it. So
yeah,
it's pretty amazing how quickly things can come from just a thought into action. So
well, that's a good point, because I mean, you think about not just business intelligence, but the whole data warehousing world. It was, the traditional method is the business user or business unit goes to IT. They say, here are some of the requirements, some of the metrics we want in these reports. IT then kind of goes away and builds it, comes back 6 months later, 12 months later, here you go, here's the report, and next thing you know, the business doesn't even remember what they asked for, this isn't necessarily going to serve our needs anymore, and you've just, essentially, it's not a particularly useful model. And Amazon really helps you kind of shorten that time frame significantly, it sounds like, between what you can do with Redshift and some of their other database products and whatever BI tool you choose to use. Is that kind of how you see this evolving?
Oh, definitely. And the options, I guess the kind of plug and play workflow is pretty amazing, and it's given us the flexibility in our organization to be able to say, well, we can use this tool for now, and there's a chance we may decide there's something different in the future that we want to use and plug in its place, and we're confident that that product will be there whenever the need is there.
Right. Well, that's the other thing. You can start to use a tool, and if it doesn't meet your need, you can stop using it and move to another tool.
Right.
So I think that puts vendors like JasperSoft and others, puts them on their toes. They've got to continually innovate and make their product useful. Otherwise, they know that their AWS customers can simply press a button, stop using it, just press another button, start using another tool. So
right.
I think it's good in that sense. But kind of, when you talk about cloud, and especially around data, you get questions around privacy, about data ownership. Who owns the data? If it's in Amazon's cloud, it's your data, but it's in their data centers. How do you feel about that, Adam? Is there any concerns around either privacy or data ownership when it comes to using the cloud? I mean, you guys are all in the cloud, so.
Right, yeah, so we've isolated a lot of our data into virtual private clouds. So with that segment of the network, we feel much more comfortable putting our data in a public space, because we do feel like it's secure enough for our type of data. So that was one of the major concerns up front, but after talking with Amazon and going through the whole process of migrating to it, we kind of feel way more comfortable with that.
Can you expand on that a little bit? So you've got a private instance essentially in Amazon's cloud?
Right. So we have a private subnet, so it's a segmented piece of their network that's just for us.
Okay.
So you can't access this publicly, only within our VPN client or within our infrastructure itself.
Okay.
So we're segmented, we're away from everybody else.
Interesting. So they offer that kind of type of service when there's more privacy concerns and security concerns.
Definitely.
And of course, a lot depends on the type of data. I mean, how sensitive that data is. If it's if it's personally identifiable data, obviously it's going to be more sensitive than if it's just general market data that anyone could potentially access. Daniel, talk about your concerns around that, or did you have concerns?
Definitely.
Is that more of a governance, people process question than a technology question, I think?
Well, it's
definitely
a technology question to a certain extent. I mean, as a transaction-based business, we are obviously very concerned with security, and our CTO is very adamant about that. And so that was one of the first issues that we addressed whenever we decided to go this route. And obviously, AWS has taken all the precautions. We have a very similar setup to what Adam is describing as far as our security, and we are very much confident that it is a very robust solution.
So looking forward, how do you see your use of both the cloud and kind of analytics evolving? One of the things we've been covering a lot is as use cases get more complex, you've got to orchestrate more data flows. You've got to move data from more places. You mentioned you're using Attunity to do some of that replication from your transactional database into Redshift. What are some of the other potential data integration challenges you see yourselves facing as you kind of potentially get more complex deployments? You've got more data, maybe you start using more services on Amazon. How do you look to tackle some of those data integration challenges? When we start?
That's a good question. One of the things we're trying to do inside of our organization is, I guess, bring data from all the different sources that we have together. We use Salesforce for our sales team. We collect information from MailChimp, from our digital marketing agency that we'd like to tie all that information together. And so that's something we're working on. Attunity has been a great help there, and their product development as far as their capabilities of bringing in information from other sources is growing. So that's we're confident that the demand is there and that the product will develop as we move forward.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that we've got you two gentlemen up here, one with a kind of a on-premise to cloud deployment and one all in the cloud. So clearly Attunity can kind of gap both those,
right.
the on-premise and cloud world, but also works in the cloud environment. Adam, if you could talk a little bit about how you see this kind of evolving as you get more complex, maybe bring in more systems. Are you looking to bring in more data sources? Maybe even third-party data sources, outside data sources. How do you look at this evolving?
Right, so presently we do have a Mongo database, so we have other sources that we're doing now. There's talks of even trying to stick that in DynamoDB, which is a Amazon offering, and that ties directly into Redshift, so we could load that data directly into that using that key pair or however we want to use that type of data mart. But one of the things that we're trying to work out right now is just distribution and being agile, elasticity. We're trying to work those issues with our growing database. So our database grows rather large each month, so working on scalability is our primary focus, but other data sources, so we're looking at other database technologies that we can leverage in addition to SQL Server to help distribute that load.
So we've got time just for one more question. I wonder, I always like to ask when we get customers and users on if you can give some advice to other practitioners who are watching. So I mean, if you can give one piece of advice to somebody who might be in your position, they're looking, maybe they've got an on-premise data warehouse, or maybe they're just trying to figure out a way to make better use of their data. I mean, what would be the one thing? Would it be a technology piece of advice maybe? Look to something like Redshift or in solutions like Attunity? Maybe it would be more of a cultural question around the use of data and that mindset of making data-driven decisions. What would that kind of one piece of advice be, if I could put you on the spot?
Okay, I would say don't try to do it yourself when the experts have done it for you. I couldn't put it any more simpler than that.
Very succinct, but very powerful. How about Adam?
For me, my biggest takeaway would be just Redshift. I was kind of apprehensive to use it at first, because I was so used to other technologies, but we can do so much with Redshift now at half the cost. So use what works.
Pretty compelling. All right, fantastic. Well, Adam Haynes, Daniel Heacock, thank you so much for joining us on theCUBE. Appreciate it. We'll be right back with our next guest. We're live here at AWS reInvent in Las Vegas. You're watching theCUBE.